like I ask a question and he can't hear the question, and if he can hear your voice better and you repeat it, that's the person then is just hearing the question being said twice.
Okay.
You know.
Can you hear me better here, Dad?
You're fine. You're fine.
Or over here?
I can hear you either way.
He says he can always hear me talking.
Yeah.
That's because it's your daughter.
Yeah, wait till the other one comes. She's big sister. She's even more bossy.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Do you know Bill Kleinman? Do you know the name Kleinman?
No.
That's my sister's name, and her husband's a teacher out at Hamilton High, English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a deal to set up the camera, isn't it?
You can start. A basic thing whenever you're.
Okay. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's start with your parents. What were your parents' names and where were they from?
My dad's name was John J. Karkula, and he was from Blaine, Ohio. Now, you want me to carry with him a little bit before I go to my mother?
Yeah.
And he joined the Army and was with General Pershing in Weslaco, Texas. And they were chasing Pancho Villa, trying to get a hold of him because Pancho Villa had invaded the United States in a town in New Mexico. I don't know if you know that or not. And so he was stationed there, and my mother, whose name was Bessie Trevino, and her parents had a big laundromat. So my dad used to take his uniforms and stuff there, and in them days, the Spanish were pretty particular. You know, they were very protective of their girls. Well, they wouldn't let mother go out with him, so he'd come in, bring his clothes in, and visit with her, and then he would get the mariachis and come and serenade her. And she would look out the window, you know, with him. Anyway, they finally eloped after about 3 or 4 months, got married.
Where did they get married at?
There at, I think it was Poteet, a little town called Poteet or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's in New
They're in
Mexico.
Texas.
Oh, in Texas.
This is in Texas, Weslaco, Texas.
Okay. Do you know what year they got married?
Well, let's see. I think it was about I believe it was 1918. I don't have the record on that.
Okay. Now, and tell me your mother. Your mother's name was Bessie.
My mother's name was Blasa, they call it, I think. Blasa in Spanish. Trevino. Her mother was Spaniard and her dad was Yaqui Indian from Old Mexico.
So where was your mother born?
She was born there in Texas, there in Weslaco.
Okay. All right. Now, what kind of work did your father do?
What did he do?
Yeah, what kind of work?
Well, he got gassed, as I understand, in World War I. He was a veteran. In fact, he's buried here at Fort Whipple. And so he did some truck farming after he got a medical discharge. He did truck farming and was a canal rider for the irrigation district there. And then the humidity was so hard on him that they sent him to Arizona.
So this was in Texas?
Hmm?
Was that in Texas?
Yes, this is Texas. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is there in Weslaco, Texas. It's a farming. It's a kind of a farming deal. You know, he raised cabbage and stuff like that. In fact, he made sauerkraut. Along with that, and then of course he had a pension, and so we moved to Phoenix. I remember I was just a little kid, and I remember we camped out. I think it was on the desert out here, and the coyotes was howling and scared me. There's something to throw in.
Yeah. Okay. Now, did your mother worked before she got married? She worked at the laundry.
Yeah, she worked at the laundry with her parents. Yes.
And did she work after she got married, or did she stop?
No, she didn't work after she was married. Just during the time until she married Dad.
Okay. All right. So, so your father was in the Army, and he kind of stationed in Texas at the time that he met your mother?
Well, he was stationed there in Weslaco
Okay.
with General Pershing.
Okay. And then once World War One started, he was involved with World War One. He was in the Army in World War One.
He was there. You got me on that. He was. All I know is he was stationed there, and he met Mother there, and whether it took place before or after, I don't know.
Okay. All right. So when were you born?
I was born in 1924. There at Weslaco.
Okay. So in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, do you have brothers and sisters?
I had 9. There was 10 of us. I had 3 brothers. There was 4 of us, 4 boys and 6 girls.
Okay. And 4 boys and 6 girls?
4 boys and 6 girls. Yes.
Okay. And where are you in the lineup of kids?
Well, I was about the middle one. I had my oldest sister, who was 93 now. There's Melba, Helen, Richard, Harold, and then me. So I was the middle one, in the middle of the family.
Okay. And what's the names of your siblings after you?
Well, there was Eva. Well, there was Harold, Ernie, and then Eva, Martin, Anna, Gracie, Dealey.
Okay. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, there was a lot of kids. And my mother was no bigger than you. And I'll tell you, she was a great lady.
Yeah.
Always. In fact, I have stressed and said to the kids, I never ever saw her asleep. We'd go to bed at night, she'd be up. Get up next morning, she'd be up. So I don't know when she rested. She was really a wonderful lady.
I can imagine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you said that your family came to Arizona in 1927?
In 27.
Okay. And what was it that made your father and mother decide to come to Arizona?
Well, they decided because Dad couldn't stand the humidity. It bothered his lungs, his breathing.
And why did he choose to come to Phoenix?
Oh, I think he bought a farm there on South Phoenix. And we come there, and we were there. We landed at 5 Points, went to this place there on South Central for a year, and then the Depression hit, and they lost the farm. The river was running at that time. There was water running there. So then, when he lost the farm, well, then he come to Goodyear contracting cotton.
So do you know what year it was that he came to Goodyear?
In 31.
1931. And so what was his job for Goodyear?
What was his job?
For Goodyear.
No, I didn't hear that. Huh?
What kind of work did he do for Goodyear?
For Goodyear, he was a contractor. He contracted cotton, weeding. Them days they weed cotton, chop, and whatever. So he'd contract. He was a contractor, weeding cotton, and then also contract fields of cotton. He would contract with the farmer and pick a field, pick cotton.
And where did your family live?
We lived, in them days there was 4 camps at Goodyear, cotton camps. And we lived at a camp number 3, which was a little community. It had a school, had a little grocery store, had a church, and they had regular homes for the original people there. And then maybe I'm getting off of track, but and when season come to pick, there'd be maybe 1,000 people there.
So they had homes for all the workers?
Yeah, they had tents, a row of tents, just one right after the other. Maybe anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people.
Now, where was Camp 3 at?
Camp 3 is where, are you familiar with Sun Lakes? You know where the Valley National, the Bank of America is? There was a 40-acre place right there. And that was Camp 3.
Okay. Now, Camp 1 was the main headquarters, right?
Camp 1 was Goodyear, which is Ocotillo now, where Baxter's at the store.
Okay.
That was Camp 1.
Now, and do you remember where Camp 2 and 4 were?
Camp 2, you know where the post office is on Queen Creek? Right across the street, there's a little tower, you ever notice that little water tower? Well, that's Camp 2 right there.
Chandler Heights.
And it wasn't as big as Camp 3, it was just a smaller place.
Was that Chandler Heights or Queen Creek?
The post office right across the street. I guess it was Chandler Heights.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
might be
Chandler Heights.
Yeah.
Right across the street from the post office.
And what about the other camp?
Camp 4 was, where the Last Chance is? The Last Chance was at Sun Lakes. You know where that bar is and make the corner there?
Mm-hmm. Along Arizona Avenue?
Yeah, well, it was off of Arizona Avenue about a half a mile. That was Camp 4. Now, I didn't see any activity there. They had closed it down. Nobody lived there because the water was very salty, and they couldn't have water. Well, I had a couple of stragglers that put in tents up there, but there was no activity there.
Now, did Camp 2 have houses and things like
Yes.
that as well?
Yes,
Did it have a church and a school or just houses?
just houses.
The
Yeah.
same kind of tent houses?
What?
Were they like tent houses or frame buildings?
Frame buildings. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any memories from being a little kid there in Camp 4?
They have.
Do you have any memories from when you were a kid there at Camp 3?
Do I have a memory
Yeah.
at Camp 3?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yes, I was there. I started working pretty young. We were pretty poor during the Depression and what have you. My brother that was older than me and Eva and Anna and Gracie and Martin went to school at Goodyear there at that. It was a two-building school. And I chopped cotton. I went to work pretty young, working for $1 a day.
Do you remember what that was like to chop cotton when you were young?
Oh yeah.
Can you describe it?
Well, it used to get my back chopped, and it'd get hot. And I think we got 5 cents a row. And then that cotton would just be thick with grass burrs, And Dad would contract for a field, and then we'd go chop cotton. And they paid 5 cents a row. So that's what we got, 5 cents a row.
So you had a lot of kids in the family were working at that time.
Well, the kids were at school, mostly the younger kids. I only went to 3rd grade school.
Okay. And did you go to the school that was in Camp 3?
No,
Okay.
I didn't go to school there. I went to school to Kyrene. And then there's a camp out there. I don't know if you're familiar with Lone Butte Ranch. It's over there by the casino.
Okay.
It's out there in the desert. Well, it was the desert there. We would go and camp out there, and there was a Mrs. Brimhall who was the teacher in Mesa. She used to drive out, and the school furnished a place to stay. Part of it was her house, and part of it was the schoolroom. She taught I think anyway from kindergarten on up to 8th grade.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So all the kids were in one classroom? Where all the kids were all together in one classroom?
In one room, one big room, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There was maybe 20, 25 people, So, very good teacher. I learned a lot from her.
So you said your younger siblings went to school in Goodyear?
We're what?
Your younger siblings went to school in Goodyear?
We're,
Your younger brothers and sisters, they went to school in Goodyear?
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then at Levine too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Levine. I went to school at Levine.
So how long did your family stay in Goodyear?
Well, actually, we call it Goodyear. It was Camp 3, and then we moved to Goodyear.
Okay.
In fact, twice. We moved wherever the work was. And most of the time, we spent part of the time at Camp 3, and then moved to Goodyear, which that's where I lived when I joined the Marine Corps at Goodyear.
Now, did your family live in one of the tent houses, or what was your house like that you lived in?
Well, they had these big adobe homes, just a line of them, maybe 20 of them. And it'd be 2 bedrooms. And so we lived in one of them.
Can you describe what you remember about Goodyear? What it looked like?
Oh, well, it was, it was, it was somewhat kind of like that movie, There's a Graft, or what do you call it? That movie with Henry Fonda, showing the poor people, camp people, and what have you. Mm-hmm. However, we had permanent structures for the permanent people, which was adobe buildings, and they had set up, and then they had houses. They had some houses. Mm-hmm. We lived in houses, in the house, and then adobe.
So they had the school there. And
yeah, they had that school. Yes. They had that school that it was a 2-building school.
Do you remember a store being there? Do you remember a store?
Do I remember?
A store.
A story?
A store. Was there a little store in Goodyear?
A little store? Yes, a Basha. It was a little trading post. That's where they got to start. Eddie Bash is, I knew his parents well, and his aunts and all, because I was just a kid too. But yes,
Okay.
yeah, I can picture it in my mind and all, and went
Yeah.
through it.
So you were basically doing farm work as a young man, is what you were doing.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Now,
Chop cotton, pick cotton.
so before the war began, before 1941, you were basically out in the fields picking cotton and helping your dad.
Well, at that time, I started driving tractor. I drove tractor for Boswell when I was 15 years old. I started driving tractor, and so I drove tractor for Boswell. I think in 1942, I went to work in Marana Air Base as a lineman. So mostly tractor driving. And then I was doing some cowboying at the time too.
Okay. Can you tell me what you were doing as a cowboy?
Do what?
What were you doing as a cowboy?
Worked cattle.
I'm gonna take 1 second, since you changed your topic just a little bit. I just want to dust your face a little bit and your little hot spots, right there. And since he keeps rocking back
Okay.
and forth, I need to just change this too.
Do I need some powder?
You might want to try not to rock so much, Dan.
No,
You're fine.
he's comfortable.
I've got some powder, Ernie, if you need it.
Oh, really? You use powder?
I don't want to look too pretty.
Don't put that in with the cowboy story.
Yeah, right. The pretty and the cowboy don't mix.
Do what?
So the powder and the cowboy don't mix.
No.
Okay.
You're rolling and he's good.
Okay. Tell me about what you were doing as a cowboy. You were doing that for Boswell?
Well, I worked cattle. In them days, they didn't have medication for screwworms. And the cattle would get worms on them, blowflies and worms and what have you. And then so we'd rope them. And them days there was cattle all over the place. And so we'd rope and be 3 or 4 cowboys, and we'd go out there and go through the field. You could smell them, from the worms. And we would rope them and dig out the worms, and they didn't have any medication for it then, so we chewed tobacco.
Okay.
We chewed tobacco and spit in it and then put cotton on it. And I would kill the worms. In fact, I worked the SV for Jack Bogles, for his dad, not Jack. The SV Ranch, which was Wiki up in Wickenburg.
Okay.
Down there. That's what we did out in the desert, because the donkeys used to go out, the cattle by a water hole. The donkeys would go and bite them and bring blood, and then they'd get worms, and then we'd have to go doctor them out there.
Okay. Did you use tobacco then?
Tobacco. They come out with a black smear at the time. Later on, that worked pretty good, but the tobacco was the best. And I didn't chew tobacco. I didn't smoke at that time, and so we just cut off a hunk, put in your mouth, chew it for a little while, and then that was the medicine.
Well, that's interesting.